Kamala Harris is out with some new policy proposals. She needs to win over black voters, specifically black male voters. So she appeared on The Shade Room, predominantly black podcast, in order to talk about that. Let's take a listen.
President Barack Obama, he was campaigning for you in Pittsburgh before some students at the University of Pittsburgh, which is my alma mater. And he said some things that really ruffled some feathers in the news. He said, "It makes me think you aren't just feeling the idea of having a woman as a president. You're coming up with other alternatives and other reasons for that. We have not seen the same kind of energy and turnout in all corners of our neighborhoods and community as we saw when I was running." So when you hear those words, I'm sure you were briefed on the situation. A former Ohio State Senator, Nina Turner, she came out on CNN and said, "Why are you putting black men up against the wall and pressuring them into something that possibly, they don't want to do if they want to vote for you or not?" So my question to you is, do you think that what President Obama said was the right thing to say?
Let me tell you, I am very proud to have the support of President Obama and that he is out traveling to talk with voters about what is at stake in this election. I'm very proud to have his support. What is also important is, one, to understand, like as I said, I intend to earn the vote of everyone, including black men. Two, pay attention to everything that President Obama talked about, because he also talked about at length the danger of Donald Trump. The danger. I think it's really important to focus on the stakes of this election, and there are two choices. And I ask everyone to look at the background, look at the work, look at the words.
All right. So pretty clearly, she may not be too so happy with Barack Obama.
Yeah, that was
He's put her in a little bit
wasn't it?
of a bind. I mean, look, anybody running for office as opposed to Obama in his masterly sinecure, just lecturing all of us mere mortals, actually has to grapple with, he no longer has to get himself elected. And also, I would say, he never did that when he was trying to get himself elected. It's only now that he's influencer Netflix Obama.
Back in his era, the whole, my brother's keeper thing.
Absolutely.
It's pretty consistent with his politics of, black respectability.
I think you're not wrong. I guess I would just put it as this nakedness of he literally was like, I want to speak to the brothers out there and be like, some of y'all ain't voting for women and you're making things up. I'm like, dude, you are literally trying to tell people not only what to think, but if what they think is not going along with you, that you're straight up sexist.
Yeah.
That is an insane thing to do for any group, not just black people. I mean, if some Indian person was to my Indian brothers out there, I'm like, who the fuck are you to be telling me how to think?
Yeah, well, I think, two things are possible. One is that he actually got crosswise with the way Kamala wanted to message this. And that's actually my guess, because she has been very careful to not fall into the Hillary Clinton trap of being, actively contemptful of voters or messaging like she doesn't have to earn their vote. She's just entitled to it. Also, she's really avoided, thank God, this messaging around what's important about this election is my trailblazing status. She has dodged all of that. Even you'll recall when she got asked that question on CNN by Dana Bash of teed her up to trash Trump over his comments about she's not really black or whatever. She's just same old playbook, let's move on. And so I think it's likely that she's actually not happy about this messaging from Obama. It's also possible, though, that they feel like he has the cred to
I think you might be
lecture
wrong.
black. He doesn't. Nobody does. No one should, right? To lecture black male voters. Whereas, obviously, if it was her trying to pull that off, it would go even more poorly than it did with Obama. But I don't know. I thought with her pivot there, it seemed to me like she was actively unhappy about this direction. When we were talking to Logan previously, you mentioned that there is a lot of discussion online of Kamala's doing this media blitz now because their internals must be really poor. And by and large, I think Logan's analysis of also it's almost election day and of course the candidates are likely to be doing media appearances. I think that's largely true. But it does seem like there is a particular nervousness around black male voters specifically.
That is true. She's doing Charlemagne today.
As evidenced by this podcast, Charlemagne, the the policy proposals we're about to talk about and rip apart, the Obama comments, et cetera. there does seem to be some nervousness about that specific demographic group that they're kind of telegraphing in some of these moves.
Absolutely, because I mean, look, it's a game of margins, and it's one of those where I guess to stick on this point, you know, everyone's like, oh, the internals must be bad if she's going on Fox News or Rogan. I'm like, what if the internals show that it's a 50-50 race? And if I had only a 50% shot of accomplishing the single most important thing I'll ever do in my life, I would be doing some crazy shit to make sure that that got from 50 to 51 to 52, even 50.5 is better than 50. So maybe that's just me. But let's put B2 up on the screen just to set up, again, why this policy proposal is coming from Harry Enton over at CNN. No matter how you splice the data, Trump seems to be the strongest Republican with black voters since 1960. Young black men in particular have trended right towards Trump runs, cutting the Dem margin by 40 points from 2012. But Trump is doing historically well with black women too. So that is the key point, is that this is the biggest realignment of black voters, at least poised to be, since the civil rights era.
I want to say, though, that I'm reserving judgment until it actually happens.
Sure, fair.
Because we did see these same trends heading into the Biden 2020 run, where, you know, he was trailing how Hillary Clinton did, and there was a big discussion about this. And on election day, black voters overall showed up for him in basically the same numbers as previously. And there has been some polling that's been contradictory, and I put a lot of stock in the New York Times poll because they did a super sample of black voters. That means they had a larger groups that were able to look more, you know, in detail at the data. But there have been other polls that have shown Kamala performing just as well with black voters as Biden did last time around. So to me, it's not definitive that this is going to manifest, but there's certainly been a significant amount of polling data that suggests it could. And as I said before, the Kamala Harris team seems to be projecting some nervousness that this trend with black men in particular could be the case.
Yeah.
You know, I'm fairly persuaded with the numbers on how many new black women registered to vote and are showing up in the early voting periods in the states that we have data to say I don't think that she probably is going to have an issue there with black women. We also see women in general, this large gender gap in, you know, with women favoring Kamala and a, you know, large gender gap with men more favorable towards Trump. So I'm definitely more skeptical about the black women piece of this, but I think it's definitely possible with black men.
Yeah, definitely. And well, again, to underscore, I guess, the policy proposal, whether it's true or not, they seem to believe it, and they're acting in that way. So let's put this up on the screen. Kamala now has some new opportunity agenda for black men. Let me just go through it. Provide $1 million loans that are fully forgivable up to $20,000 for black entrepreneurs and others to start a business. Support education, training, and mentorship programs that lead to good-paying jobs for black men, including pathways to become teachers. Protect cryptocurrency investments so black men who make them know that their money is safe. Launch a national health initiative focused on illnesses that disproportionately impact black men, and legalize recreational marijuana to create opportunities for black Americans to succeed in this new industry. You called it peak neoliberalism, and I genuinely do think that is so accurate because, I mean, let's just fixate on this a little bit.
Yeah.
It's like we're going to provide $1 million in loans to specifically people for the color of their skin. Okay, so we're going to do affirmative action.
It doesn't even say, it says black entrepreneurs and others.
Oh, actually,
so it's
you know
not
what?
even really clear
Maybe
that
you're right.
It's just like.
Okay, well, I guess then we're just cherry picking what exactly that means. Some of it will go to black people. Cool. We're going to support mentorship programs. I want everyone out there in your life to ask yourself if you want a mentor provided to you by the government. That's an insane thing to do. We're going to provide government mentor. Here is your government-issued mentor to make sure that you live a better life.
See, and that is some pure Obama era shit.
Yeah, it definitely is.
It really is. I mean, that was like My Brother's Keeper program and all of that. But yeah, I mean, I saw Perry Bacon Jr., who's I think he's still at the Washington Post, right? Columnist at the Washington Post. Previously at NBC, himself a black man, saying like, you know, I don't really love the idea being put out there that black men specifically need mentors.
Right.
The other one that really gets me is, okay, crypto, let's just put a pin in that because I have a lot to say about that one. The health one, so they describe this in the greater detail part as a national equity health initiative focus from the National Institute of Health on illnesses that disproportionately impact black men. And this is where I really can dig into what I mean by this is the peak of neoliberalism. why can't you just run on universal health care so that we don't have to pick and choose like, oh, if you got prostate cancer, maybe we'll care about that and do a health equity initiative, not even giving you care, but some study at the NIH, thank you very much. Or like, oh, if you need IVF, maybe we'll pay for that. How about we just have health care that would, yes, actually disproportionately benefit Black men and other marginalized group, but would help everybody and, you know, not be like pathetically inadequate and patronizing as many of these things are. And that's what drives me crazy about this is we've talked about this ad nauseum, but it's just worth reminding people the policies, I'm not saying that it is never the case that it makes sense to have policies that are specific to a demographic group. I'm not saying that like blanket across the board, but we know from history that the policies that have most improved the lives and economic status of Black Americans have been universal policies, like lifting the minimum wage, like increasing rates of unionization, like, you know, in a theoretical world where Democrats still cared about and talked about healthcare, universal healthcare. And so that's why this sort of like, let me do some niche little bullshit programs for some targeted demographic group drives me so crazy.
Yeah, and I mean, again, you know, just to stick with it, and this is part of why the whole equity mindset is so stupid. When they're like health initiatives on prostate cancer, it's like, you know, prostate cancer is a cancer that affects most men generally, specifically people who are poor and unhealthy. You know, if we talk about diseases that are the worst or most impactful on Black communities, it's the same statistically for people who are poor and who don't have access to healthcare or eat a shitty diet. So it's like, it's not complicated to think about it that way. And also, if you put it that way, it sounds a lot better, right? Hey, all these diseases that disproportionately impact, you know, men who are old, obese, diabetic, we're gonna try and fix that. That'll help Black people, it'll help white people, it'll help everybody. You know, there's a lot of poor white people out there too who also suffer from prostate cancer, from diabetes, and from a lot of this stuff. So that's nonsense. Look, on the weed thing, everybody here knows that I'm against weed, all right? I think it's bad. But how, if I was Black and I was a man, I would be so insulted that one of the key pillars is, let's legalize weed. They're like, oh, let's give you people drugs. Is that, like, how is that not so insulting to these people? To be like, oh, they really like to smoke weed, right? Like, what the fuck? We're gonna legalize drugs specifically for a specific demographic. If you want to, but she didn't even mention, you know, that's one of those where, look, I don't agree with it. People are like, oh, Black people disproportionately get arrested for it or whatever, or have in the past. So it needs to be, you know, redistributed with some criminal justice bullshit. Fine. Doesn't make a lot of sense to me still with the current data, but I could understand that. On this one, it's literally like, we need to legalize weed, and we need to legalize it so that you can sell it and you can do a better job of being a fucking legal drug dealer. I'm like, how is that not so insulting to people? That it's like, that is the epitome in my head of handoutism. And it's like, and it doesn't get called racist or anything by the media. And that's the pinnacle of racism to me. Legalize drugs for you. What?
I support the policy, right? I support both the legalizing, and I support the, you know, the idea of this is the community that's been most impacted. So we're opening up this new business opportunity, like, let's do things in there. I'm good with all of that, but you're so right to put it as a specific plank framed in like, this is our Black male agenda is really something.
Yeah, here's some weed for you.
Let's talk about crypto though, because there is so much going on with the fact, again, that they put the crypto plank in this particular policy proposal. And it's no secret why. There's actually, you know, significant polling that suggests that Black men are, you know, disproportionately actually holders of crypto. So that's part of why they include this plank. That's their logic. But there also has been, crypto has already won this election. Let me just say that, right? The Biden administration, through Gary Gensler at the SEC, they have aggressively enforced the laws that are on the books against crypto, against scams and against, you know, things, people getting scammed in the financial world in general, and crypto has been subject to that enforcement. And there has been, over years now, a large and concerted effort that was very visible when it's Sam Bankman-Fried, but has very much continued at large scale after that. And crypto is now one of the largest corporate contributors, that industry, to the presidential campaign and down ballot campaigns in this whole cycle. This is one of the areas where Kamala has really pretty consistently signaled that she will actually be different from Joe Biden. She will be more lax on enforcement. And I was just reading this morning, Saagar, I didn't know all of his backstory, but they really made an example of Katie Porter in particular, where in the weeks before her election, a crypto-affiliated PAC dumped $10 million into ads against her. They didn't have anything to do with cryptocurrency, these ads, but into ads against her. She loses, and that ended up being like a warning shot at all Democrats and Republicans that, hey, you better not get crosswise here. And they've wrapped it all in this language of like, oh, entrepreneurship and innovation, et cetera, et cetera. And Trump completely flipped on crypto. Kamala versus Biden, she's completely, signaled that she's going to be different on crypto too. And so, that manifests in things like saying that part of your blackmail agenda is quote unquote protecting crypto assets. It's extraordinary to see the influence of money in politics in real time.
I don't know. I have a conflict of interest on this one. I like crypto. I'm a hodler myself.
Yeah, but you don't want to get scammed.
No, I actually did get
pulled.
scammed.
Yeah.
As people here know, I lost $5,000 on a BlockFi. By the way, actually finally got my money back. I don't know how exactly that happened, but one day I got an email and they were like, here, somehow the bankruptcy clawback stuff worked. So, it only took a couple of years and being in the weeds. But there, as what they point out, is that there are a lot, men in particular from Robinhood, crypto and all this, especially back in the 2021, 2022 era, probably did buy a decent amount of crypto. I bought a lot before that. The point is that what they are trying to do this is just handout shit. This is not anything that has to do with what is the way that we should have a well-regulated commerce and exchange? What should the future of American monetary, policy look like? Like, how should we think about banking? How should we make sure that people are protected? This is just pure, trying to get into the weeds of quote unquote, appealing to people by talking about some tiny little specific thing, which ends up, in my opinion, being very, very patronizing. So this entire thing, I'm really hoping, Charlemagne has an interview with her today around 5 p.m. It's going to be live. I'm going to be watching it. Yeah, and he does a good job of cutting to the core of this stuff. So I saw him recently. He was just talking with Andrew Schultz, talking about young black men and their appeal with Trump. And I'm really hoping he focuses in on that with her and just tries to get to the crux of what's actually happening here, and is it not very patronizing the way that you were talking, both Obama and her, in the way that this is being put forward. Of course, you've got Bakari Sellers and all these other black congressmen out there and look at Kamala's incredible plan for black men. I'm like, I cannot imagine how insulted I would be if my leaders and my supported elders and all these other people, this is what they were saying is so good for you. It's just, I don't know. There's so much lack of individualism in the way that you even look at any of this.
Nina, we had Nina Turner, Senator Nina Turner, on yesterday. I encourage you to watch her comments. Her first reaction before she really read through the plan details was like, okay, well, at least they're trying to appeal to people through policy. And I think that's fair, but it's also fair to look at the policy and say this is bad. Patronizing bad and bad. Just to dig one layer deeper on the crypto thing, because I've been thinking a lot about this. The reason that so many black men have crypto investments is because they've been locked down on so many other forms of wealth accumulation and wealth building, lower home ownership rates, discriminated against in terms of banks and the mortgage rates that they're charged, or whether they're even approved for a loan. And so crypto really offered this, this utopian vision of well, this is the new financials. This is how you're going to make it. This is how you're going to be able to build wealth. And, some of that is genuine and some of it has just been completely fraudulent and scams. So, again, to get to the neoliberal point of this, rather than really doing anything that's going to fundamentally address that lack of wealth accumulation, it's well, we're just going to keep enabling the scammers and make sure that they're regulated more lightly so that the people who have lots of crypto, because crypto is also rife with massive inequality in terms of who's benefiting and who's on the other end sometimes getting screwed. So we're going to make sure that those people at the top can continue to get theirs and continue to in certain instances, screw you over. That's part of what's so disturbing here. And just, the specific fight is really around which agency is going to regulate crypto and do the enforcement. And the SEC tends to be more aggressive. There's another body, the CFTC, that the crypto industry wants to be the regulator because they think that they just basically won't really conduct any oversight there. And like I said, at this point, I think it doesn't really matter which of these candidates wins because both of them have already signaled that they're going to do what the crypto industry wants. So anyway, that's where we are. We do have an Axios tear sheet you can just put up on the screen there, B5, just to back up what I was saying before about the amount of money that this sector has donated. And they've launched this whole campaign aimed at elites, at political elites, to convince them there is a quote-unquote crypto voter who is going to be basing their vote on whether crypto is regulated at the SEC or the CFTC, that this is like the primary thing that they're going to be voting on. There's no evidence that that's really the case outside of, the Mark Cubans of the world and like the people who are kind of at the top of that industry. But I think the politicians are buying that that's the case. And they're certainly buying that they don't want to get crosswise of this industry because of the amount of money they have to spend against you if you undercut them or if you piss them off.
Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show, help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.